Hi, everyone. This is Miranda with the Valuable Voices podcast. I have Christen Clark here today, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear her story and meet her. I was connected to a Christian podcast group on Facebook, so she found me there, and I can't wait to hear your son's story and what you're doing with the Collide Kids podcast. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I was checking out your Facebook page a little bit, the Collide Kids podcast. That's where people
Yes.
find you, right? But yeah, just share a little bit about your son's story and we'll go from there.
Sorry, I swallowed something.
Yeah, no worries.
Excuse me. My name is Christen Clark. I live in the Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I live in near Atlanta, Georgia. I feel like everybody says they live in Atlanta, but it's really like 30 to 40 minutes from Atlanta. So that's most of us. I've lived here for about, 15 years. And before that, I grew up in North Carolina. I met my husband here. So that's kind of how, what convinced me, to stay. I came for a summer internship and, met a cute boy. So I couldn't leave. Right.
Love it.
Yeah. So we worked together at a church, in Atlanta, and it was a large church. And so we both, enjoyed being a part of that for a while. And then, we got married and I got pregnant with my daughter, and, it wasn't a great pregnancy. It was kind of tough, but still a good outcome. I still got a baby out of it. And then I found out, so let me back up. I felt like just really tired and struggling, with, having a new baby. I was sleep deprived. I felt bad all the time. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was trying to lose the baby weight and do all this stuff. So I went to the gym and I got a trainer and I got all this stuff, just trying to figure out why I felt so bad. And then my husband and I were on a date, just getting out of the house, and I was eating some kind of food that I loved. And I just remember it tasted weird. And then I was like, oh no, I know what that means. And so I was like, all right, on our way home from this date, let's go by CVS because I need to get a pregnancy test. So, so I had a 3-month-old baby when I realized that I was pregnant again. And so,
Wow, what a surprise.
Yeah, it's quite a surprise. So my kids are a year and 2 weeks apart. But that pregnancy was amazing. So after that, realizing that what I was experiencing was a little bit of sleep deprivation, and also being in my first trimester. So that made me feel bad, doubly bad, I guess. So anyway, it was a great pregnancy after that. Everything went well. And I realized one of the things, because my pregnancy was such a hard one with my daughter, I got to go in for extra visits and extra ultrasounds. I visited the perinatal facilities a few times just to kind of make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
And the only thing they ever said was, there seems to be a shadow across his chest. So I don't know if that's the arm placement or how, just things look, because with the ultrasound, you can't always really tell. And they even did a few the 4D and some different things just to kind of really, and they never found anything that was conclusive. So they just said, it might be an issue. We don't think there's anything going on, but we'll just kind of keep an eye on this. And I didn't feel bad or anything like that. I was scheduled for a C-section and I went in, and I had my son, and he was so cute. He was so subdued. My daughter screamed her head off.
Oh, wow.
When she was born, and he was so just laid back and subdued and quiet. And so we just thought, wow, what a contrast between the two of them. And it ended up being maybe a few hours. And we just kind of noticed he was getting more lethargic, but that was great. We're taking pictures with him, and, we just didn't notice anything. And, I decided to not keep him in the room that night, to send him to the nursery so that I could get some rest while I was at the hospital. And so as the nurse was taking him back to the nursery, she noticed that there was something wrong. He seemed to be a little more blue than pink, they kind of just, a newborn changes colors and their facial expressions and different things changes the hours after they're born. So she was noticing he wasn't going through those changes, and called the pediatrician to take a look at him. And then, so she came and notified us and said, hey, I noticed something with your son when I was taking him to nursery, and I had the pediatrician look at him, and they're calling in the cardiologist. So don't go to sleep yet. And it was midnight at this point. So we just kind of sat around and waited, not knowing what was going on and not thinking anything big. And so they came back a few hours later. I was a little out of it because I did fall asleep. And so my husband was sitting there, and the cardiologist explained to us that our son has a very severe heart defect. It's called transposition of the greater arteries. And so it's just a part of the heart, a part of the artery that's not going in the right direction. And so his blood was not circulating in the way it was supposed to. And so, just very matter of fact, in the middle of the night, he's explaining, your son needs to be life flighted to another hospital, and we're taking him right away. And I had just had a C-section, so I couldn't jump out of bed and go see him. But I just realized I want to hug him again. I want to touch him again. I don't know what this is going to be like. And so anyway, I said, can I go see him before you take him? And so they helped me get into a wheelchair, and they wheeled me down to the NICU. And I just remember they're like, you can't pick him up. So I was just touching him and praying over him and laying hands on him and sobbing and just I just was in shock. I didn't know what to do. And I'm a pretty peppy person, happy personality. And so I think it was just a hard thing for me. So I'm crying, and I realized I'm sobbing really loudly in the middle of the NICU in the middle of the night. So I'm apologizing to everyone. I'm sorry, I'm crying. I just didn't know how to process all of it. And so they took me back to my room, and then my husband followed the ambulance to the children's hospital that was down the road. And then he went in for surgery 36 hours after he was born. And it was quite an experience for sure. One of the hardest things, I think, was not being able to be there right before he went into surgery. I had to stay at the hospital. We went back and forth with my doctors, but I just knew I couldn't be there yet. And so I just had to pray. And there was a moment where I knew he was going into surgery. I was completely alone. All the family was at the children's hospital with my husband for just this 2-hour period. And I just was crying out to God and asking him, just please let my baby live. I don't even know what's happening. And I put I put my headphones in and started listening to just some worship music on my iPhone or whatever. And the first song that came on was by Christen, and she was singing, You Revive Me. And that the words to that song was just what, God is in that, and he's reviving him. And I just trusted. Also remember there was a nurse that came in while I was in there, and she knew that I was upset and that what I was going through. And she didn't really say a whole lot. She was fixing things in the room and getting some things set up, but she was humming hymns. She was just humming them as she was taking care of me. And I told her, I was like, you're leading me in worship right now. Just her singing those words. And I said, I know that song, and I'm thanking you for singing that for me right now. So if you're a worship leader or you're someone that loves music, just singing over someone else could be leading them to focus back on God. And so I always think about that she led me in worship in that moment. So my son went through the surgery. It went fine. He had to stay in the hospital for a few weeks. We kept hearing in the NICU, we kept hearing helicopters coming in and out. And the nurses said, people are coming from all over the country to visit the doctor that you had to do the surgery. He's one of the best for this type of surgery. And since then, I've met a couple of adults and teenagers who had this doctor who did similar surgeries, and they're thriving and doing well. So that's always been so encouraging to me to hear that story. And that's why I love to share my story, because I want people that go through a situation like this to know that you can come out on the other side of it and you're going to be okay. So he went through the surgery, and there were people praying for us. There was, lots of people that were just sending us gifts and cards and flowers, just that ministry to us, just knowing that we're not forgotten. I think a lot of times when we our friends or we know of someone that's going through a deep, dark place, whether that's in hospital or going through a death in the family, it's so important to remind them that you see them and that you know them and you know they're there. Even just those little things that you think this is not going to make a big difference, but it really does. And so just keep encouraging those people because they need that strength from you. So that's kind of the story of my son. He's doing really well now. He's 8 years old.
Awesome.
He plays basketball and baseball and soccer, and he talks nonstop. So that moment that he was just subdued and quiet in the hospital, that was it. That was the only time he was like that.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. That was our quiet time with him, but he's a lot of fun, a lot of energy, and he still has a scar on his chest. Sometimes he gets a little embarrassed about it, but my dad recently had surgery, and so they were FaceTiming with each other, and he was like, "Look, Ethan, I have a scar just like you now," and that was a lot. Like I remember Ethan was like, "Oh, we're twins." Like he was so excited. There was someone else that had a scar like him. So
wow,
that was really cool.
Little things, right? Well, as a mom, I can totally just thank you for sharing that. I mean, I can just put myself in your shoes and just like, wow, just every single person that was in that room with you, singing with you, just all the feelings flooding. I can't even imagine. So I'm sure that was life-changing for you.
It was. And it just made me more, I think, empathetic to realize that there's so many people going through things that don't have a relationship with God and they don't have a church community to pour into them. I remember watching, there was a young family next to us in the cardiac unit at the children's hospital, and they would just lay there and sob and cry out. They had no hope. And I thought, we just have we don't know the outcome, but we have a hope because of Christ. And so just a blessing to know that God is with us and that we have his Spirit with us. It's so good.
That's amazing. So how does that tie us into the Collide Kids podcast? I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. So, I have been doing children's ministry for a very long time. In fact, that's kind of how I got started at the church that I worked at where I met my husband. And so I've been doing children's ministry full time for about 15 years. And so during COVID, there was this time where we were all stuck in our houses.
Remember that time?
Remember that? And remember when we thought it was just going to be a month? Wasn't that cute that we just thought?
I remember that.
How adorable that we thought we were just going to be there for a month.
Oh man. Yeah.
So
we can laugh about it.
Exactly. We can laugh now. At the time we're like, what is going on? Yeah. And people are crazy. And anyway, I'm a creative person. I do a lot of creative videos and music things at my church. That's part of my job. And so when a lot of that got taken away or shut down for a while, I really just kind of felt bored, I guess is the word. And I love podcasts. I always listen to podcasts when I work out, when I'm driving, for long distance, lots of things. I love to just hear that different voices and different podcasts that are encouraging and make me laugh or make me think about things. So I'd never thought about doing a podcast, but I remember thinking, I wish there was something kind of like the ones that I like, but for kids. Yeah. And a lot of the ones I was finding were either they were telling Bible stories or they were, doing different things that my kids weren't really interested in. I wanted something kind of faith-based that was fun and exciting and maybe similar to what we do at church because we were missing that. And so I remember I love to go, our family always goes to the beach every summer. And my favorite thing at the beach is to get up early in the morning and go walk on the beach by myself, just pray. And I feel like I hear the Lord's voice a little bit differently at the beach. And so I remember walking and just praying and asking God what's happening next and what do I do? And he just laid this idea on my heart. And so whenever I have a lot of ideas, I feel like I have a big imagination. So a lot of times I need a what's that called? A backboard, somebody to bounce ideas off of. And
where do I focus?
Right. And that person is usually my husband. So And he's pretty good about like, that's too much, or
Yeah.
that wouldn't work. But I pitched this idea. I'm like, what do you think if I did like a podcast for kids? And he thought it was a good idea to try it out. So yeah, so I've been doing it since September of 2020, and I just love it so much. I've met so many incredible people. And even like some of my friends that have been on the show, just hearing their story,
Yeah.
in such a unique way. And it's really cool to be able to talk to them um, about their faith and how they use their faith, not just on Sundays, but in their everyday life. And I
Right.
think that type of testimony is really important for kids to hear. So
Yeah.
like I had an Olympic diver on there, and she had an incredible story. Laura Wilkinson talked
Neat.
about her gold medal and how, like, what it took for her to get there and how her faith played into that. I interviewed a firefighter from Denver, Colorado. His name is Wilson Costa, and he has this incredible story about his faith and how it plays out and how he's a firefighter. So I love being able to share those stories with kids and help kids to see that they have a purpose now, and that God can use them, whatever they're passionate about, whatever they love. God can use that to do amazing things, and he can work in them and through them. And so I love being able to do that and being able to share through the podcast. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love everything you talked about. Similar story. I started in August and just really felt this desire to share people's stories because it's inspiring and we learn and we grow from it, right?
Yeah.
So what ages would you say this is for kids?
I try to focus on my kids' age. I have an 8 and a 9-year-old. So, I would say it's for 7 to 12-year-olds, but we make it family friendly. There's nothing like really intense that we talk about. There's been a couple of episodes where we did talk about some things like safety on the internet, and things like that. So I try to preempt that with, if you're listening to this by yourself, maybe go and talk to an adult or have them listen with you. Cause I think it would be good for some of these episodes for families to have conversations. So that's what we try to build it around, that families can enjoy it together. Moms and dads can get a little something out of it. And then it's okay if younger brother and sister listen to it as well. So
I love that. Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to listen. So last question before we wrap up, why the name Collide Kids?
Well, so the idea for the Collide Kids podcast is it's where our faith and our life collide, and noticing those moments where I think a lot of times we associate church with our faith.
Right.
And our faith is something we carry with us all the time. So having these moments where it collides, where it, runs into it, that's where I think where amazing things happen. So it's where life and faith collide. So recognizing that. Yeah.
That's awesome, Christen. I'm so excited to meet you, and I can't wait to hear more. Definitely similarities. And I just know I love that. God puts something on your heart and you just take it and you run with it, and you're having so much fun with it. That's kind of what I feel about this. So it's just take a step out,
That's right. What's the worst that could happen? I mean, if you don't try, you'll never know. And so you might have to fall, you might have to mess up. I've definitely messed up a few episodes. Yeah. There was one time I interviewed a friend, and I hit into the recording, and instead I hung up on her. And so I'm like, oh no, so there's been a lot of moments where I've made mistakes or messed up different things, but all the other good things that have come from it, that doesn't matter. So just if anyone that has something on their heart, they feel nervous about trying, there's no harm in trying it at least once. So step out in faith.
I love that. So you're on Facebook, Collide Kids Podcast, and Instagram. Are you on all the podcast channels and all that too?
Yes, I'm on all of them that I know of.
Yeah.
Apple, right? Spotify, Google, Breaker, all of those.
Good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing.
Sure.
Inspired, and what a great platform to have for the kids. That age range is just perfect. I love that, just hearing other people's stories.
Yeah. And we have some exciting ones coming up. I just recently interviewed Scott Hamilton, the figure skater. And so he has an incredible story. And then just this week, the skit guys, I was able to interview them. So I've met some amazing people.
Yeah. That's what's so fun, right? Just connecting with new people and hearing their story that you may not have heard before.
Right. So yeah, I think podcasting's like an extrovert's dream. Like I get to just call random people, be like, you want to talk to me for 45 minutes?
Right, right. I love that. Well, I will definitely check it out, and I know many of my listeners will as well. So thank you again for your time, and just check them out. Collide Kids Podcast. Thanks, girl. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Miranda. Thank you, you too.
Thank you.